let's talk about Bill C9. Bill C9, guys. So, if you look for Bill C9, we read a quote in the Bible to be criminalized in Canada. Bill C9 has passed. Here is what you need to know. Fact file. Federal hate crimes legislation, blah, blah, blah. Canada hate crimes, blah, blah, blah. Did Canada criminalize, quote in the Bible? So, I've opened a few tabs because, of course, we need to make sure that we are specific and precise in understanding what's going on in Canada, particularly if you're a Canadian citizen watching this. My heart goes to you. But here is kind of a very quick law recap of this situation. A bill was passed and it has to do with hate speech. So already, if it has to do with hate speech, it doesn't matter. It's bullshit, because hate speech should not exist. In fact, hate speech doesn't exist legally, but they are making it happen. In the UK, we've got hate speech. We know that. You can't say shit, get arrested. The numbers are literally almost totalitarian level at this point. And don't worry, I've got my well, we'll dedicate a little portion to hate on Keir Starmer, traitor to the West. But before we do that, because I always have I need to bring in Nolan, I need to bring in Keir Starmer. It's how it is. But this has to do with hate. So already there shouldn't be any hate speech laws whatsoever. Okay? But this is in combination with religion. And the idea behind this is that some people who are full of hate, allegedly, are using the Bible as a way to attack minorities. But then they want to justice, they want to say stuff that is not nice, and they want to say, but it's in my Bible, so I can say it's freedom of religion. Right. Now, this is kind of the law recap. So, some people said Canada criminalized the Bible, but there is a context to it. The context is bullshit, we'll see, but there is a context. So it's not like they passed a law where you can't open the Bible and read a passage, but there are clearly some passages in the Bible that now the Canadian government has considered to be hate speech. Unbelievable. We're going to read this, but I do have to ask a question. Is this just the Bible, or is it going to involve the Quran? I'm the guy who asks the question that everybody's thinking, right? Because, I mean, if this is about religious words that are mean, there are a bunch of those in the Quran as well, right? Like, this is a fact. So, is this just with the Bible, or is it every text? We do need to ask this question. But before we continue, let's have a word from today's sponsor. Recently, a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their platforms could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. The recent historic verdict underscores the consequences of those decisions. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of up to $1,000. But let's read. Canada's House of Commons passes anti-Christian bill that would criminalize quoting Bible. Now again, we need to verify this. That is, is it only focused on Christian scripture? Because I mean, at the end of the day, the Bible, the Jews use the Bible as well, so I'm curious. They don't use the New Testament, but they do use the Old Testament, and then I would like to see what they have to say. We'll see. We'll confirm to see whether it's true or not. Let's go. Okay, so Canadian MPs passes Radical Bill C9 in a 186-137 vote, and Conservatives are now calling on Christians to pray and flood senators with phone calls and emails opposing the bill. It's not going to do anything. You know what I've noticed, by the way? That sometimes this oppressed-oppressor dichotomy has glitches. You know when it glitches? Well, when you have a Christian male who is straight and white, then of course you've got like quadruple oppressor, so whatever he says, don't care. But what happens when you have a Christian lesbian black woman? What happens? Or what do you do? And you know what I found out? What I found out is that the Christian oppressor trumps all of the other oppressed minority group conditions. So if you're black, from this point of view, your words matter. But if you're Christian, and then if you have like traditional views, then it doesn't matter. And I mean, we know that because, I mean, Biden did say, I mean, again, I've complained about shit that Trump said, but bro, Biden said, I paraphrase, I don't remember the exact wording, but Biden did say, if you don't vote blue, you ain't black. What? They mean it. People like this mean it. So anyways, Early Wednesday evening, MPs from the Liberal Party and the Bloc Québécois in a 100 whatever passed Bill C9, known as the Combating Hate Act. So interesting that this is they could have said Hate Towards Christians Act. I think it would have been more appropriate, but we'll see. Maybe hatred against religion, we still have to see. All right, so the bill now heads to Canada's rubber stamp Senate for review. Yeah, they'll accept it. A last-minute effort by Conservatives, blah, blah, blah. Earlier this week, Liberal MPs forced the bill through the report stage after earlier, as reported by LifeSite News, shutting down all debate on the bill in the committee stage. In comments sent to LifeSite News, campaign, okay, what does it do? Open quotes, with the passage of Bill C9 in the House, Christians and pro-life advocates will almost certainly face an entirely new level of hostility as the door swings open to actual persecution under a cloak of supposed legality, said CLC's campaigns manager David Cookie, who is also a Christian pastor. I'm going to say Cookie because I like it more. Cookie said the Bill C9 was framed as a law going after hate, but in reality, it is a bill that religious leaders from various faith communities say could, open quotes, say could lead to hate-related charges against believers, empowers ideologically driven police officers and judges to target for the first time the very word of God on matters of life, family, and faith. And this is unbelievable. If someone says, hey, I think all gays need to be put against a wall because I think the Bible tells me so, it's not the problem. Yeah, that is illegal because they are pushing for violence. So the government should get involved. Absolutely. But if someone is quoting the Bible because they believe something, as long as there is no direct push for violence, it's free speech. It's free speech also because a lot of these people say obscene things against white people, against Christians. It happens all the time. Why aren't they being... Why isn't there a hate speech bill about that? Oh, hate speech. It's speech you hate. That's what it is. We must prepare for the battle ahead. Yeah, oh my gosh, I would not want to live in Canada right now, let me tell you that much. CLC Director of Political Operations, Jacques Van Elke, noted Bill C9 must be stopped in its track. Good luck with that. And most senators were appointed by former the battle to defend religious freedom in Canada has now moved to the Senate, which unfortunately Justin Trudeau has spent the past decade stacking with anti-Christian bigots, I'm confused, like Christopher Wells, a radical LGBT activist who is suspect would relish the opportunity to criminalize parts of the Bible as hate speech. This is unbelievable. Okay, so we gave the perspective of the conservatives. Let's have a look at the different perspective. Like someone who tells us, no, they're exaggerating. Okay, well, let me see. Let me see what we can get. What is this explaining? Let's see. Canadian Constitution Foundation. Bill C9 has passed. Here's what you need to know. Okay, Bill 9 is Combating Hate Act. That already. The bill is the Liberal government's response to a rise in hatred. Now, this is the excuse. Also because, I don't like the idea of hating groups, but it's not illegal. Because if it were illegal, you know how many, apart from anti-Semitic, people hate the Jews, people hate black people hate Asians. A lot of the people who hate Asians, by the way, are black, so there is that. But whatever, there was already a university professor who said, even anti-Asian racial hatred from black people, the reason is white supremacy. So there is that. I didn't make that up, I have a dedicated video. But there is also a lot of hatred towards white people. So, the rise of hatred towards white people is never mentioned by those who pass these kind of laws. Because here's the thing, if they did, half, if not 70% of the voting base would be arrested for hate speech. Guys, it's true. It's true. Have you seen what's been happening recently with the whole, we talked about it, Carmelo Anthony situation, the kind of stuff people said against white people that we deserved it, the kid deserves to rot in hell, it's good, we're right. But then if hate speech were a thing, you would all go to prison if they were equally executed. The bill has raised concern about its impact on civil liberties and religious speech. Yeah, hundreds of thousands of Canadians have written to parliamentaries to oppose the bill. I hope it works. The status we know. How is it going to affect religious expression? Bill C9 has removed the good faith religious expression defense from convictions for criminal hate speech. This is the death of freedom. How don't they see it? My gosh, what kind of religious speech? Yeah, let's see, that's important. This is difficult to know in advance. That's the problem. That's precisely the problem. The religious speech in question would need to be used to incite hatred in a public space against an identifiable group, to willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group, or to willfully promote anti-Semitism. Isn't it interesting that anti-Semitism is the one example they give us? Or what about all the other ethnic groups? Why is this one wrong, which it is, but why is this one the one? If you promote anti-Semitism, okay, what about anti-white? What about anti-black at this point? No, this is the one that goes into the legislative motion. This would include inciting hatred against a group on the basis of color, race, religion. Okay, so what they do with white Christians. But look at I'm just using their own freaking words. I use their words. Unbelievable. What about a church? That's a group? Holy moly! National or ethnic origin, age, sex, sexual orientation. Okay, what about straight? Gender identity or expression, mental or physical disability. The Supreme Court of Canada has defined hatred as the most extreme forms of the emotions described by vilification and detestation, which is exactly what they do against white in every university. So you are basically outlawing what you're doing. But then they give you but those are not in a marginalized group. Okay. Which, I mean, at this point, even when you tell me it's only for minorities, okay, white people are the minority globally. Globally, white people are the minority. It goes from 7% globally of the entire population to 14%, depending on who you consider to be white. But even in the most open-minded sense, you're considering like someone like me, Southern Italian, I think I am white, but there are some people who are like, no, you're not white, bro, you're Italian, which is like the two things are not mutually exclusive because Italian is a nationality. Fuck it. Think whatever you want. Even people that like, if you're Mexican, you're not white. If you're Southern, you're not white. If you're Eastern European, you're not white. If you are Irish somehow, even though they are as white as this remote control for some reason, they are not white, fine. Only Anglo-Saxon, Western, Germanic, Protestant are white, right? You think that way, that would be like 7% of the whole population. But even the most open-minded, oh, you're not white, all Europeans are white, all white, okay, you go up to 14%, maybe even 17%, we're still a freaking minority. White people are a minority. So, if anything, all the hatred towards white people is against a global minority. That's how it is. Let's see, guys. Let's have a look. The court has also said that hatred can be identified by looking for hallmarks of hatred, including speech that, let's see, vilifies the targeted group by blaming its members for the current problems in society. Oh my gosh. Yeah, make it more vague, will you? Alleges that members of a group are a powerful menace. Man, that's insane. Accuses a group of carrying out secret conspiracies. So you can't even have conspiracy theories. Now, they're illegal. To gain global control. This is specifically for global Jews, isn't it? They are plotting to destroy Western civilization. Okay, well then it's not just Jews. Plotting to destroy Western civilization would be every single one of you are trying to pass this. Yeah, that's what I believe. But you can't even say, man, this is insane. This is even worse. This is not just the Bible. This is literally, we are outlawing what everyone who doesn't belong to our political party says. Suggests members are illegal or unlawful. What if it's true, though? What if someone is an illegal migrant? I can't suggest it. I laugh because I want to scream, such as by labeling them liars, cheats, criminals, and thugs. Oh my gosh, this is actually 50 times worse than what I thought it was. Bro, you know how many times I've been called a liar by the Afrocentrists, by the way? So do I get hate speech laws? Criminals? What if they are criminals? Thugs. You're gonna criminalize calling someone a thug? I am. This is dystopic. Calls people pure evil. Okay, well, there was this lady, it was a Muslim lady, incidentally, who beheaded, she was a nanny, and she beheaded the very young individual that she was looking after. I went quite nuts on Twitter when that happened. And then she went around screaming Allahu Akbar with the head of said individual. Can I call that pure evil, or is Canada gonna say, take a deep breath? Yeah. Equates the targeted group with groups traditionally reveled in societies such as CA, PDF files, or deviant criminals who prey on children. Oh, they're doing this because when... Okay, look, I wouldn't criminalize it. This is still bullshit. But yeah, there are people that say all gays are PDF files, and that's not true. It's not true. But even if you say that, I'll just say, bro, I disagree. Okay? A good friend of mine, I know for a fact he would never touch a child. I know that. But he's gay. Okay? So it's not true. But I wouldn't make it illegal, though. That's the whole thing. Describes members of a group as animals of subhuman. So you need to arrest the entirety of ancient Rome, by the way. I don't know if you know, but the people that say, oh, Rome was so inclusive, you know what the Romans referred, it's in the sources, to you if you weren't a citizen, half animal. And what's interesting about ancient Roman inclusivity, by the way, is that when you did get citizenship, okay, now you're fully human from a Roman perspective. You were a disgusting barbarian, which would apply whether you be Celtic, whether you be Nordic, whether you be African, whether you be whatever, because, the Romans weren't racist. They hated everyone equally. But the thing is that you did become a Roman citizen. They'd be like, okay, you're not an animal anymore. Wow. What if they rebel, though? The sources tell us what happens. If someone rebels, they are stripped of their citizenship. And you know what they are now? Animals. Again. So, not so inclusive. They are inclusive if you pay taxes and obey the law. If you subdue to imperial authority and you bend the knee, then it's fine. You can have citizenship. We don't care what you look like. We care about what your coin looks like. We care about the wheat we are getting and the cows. What you look like, who cares? The Romans were very open-minded when it comes to that. But if you dare to rebel... You know what the Romans, inclusive Romans, I say inclusive because literally there are articles after article after article that say Rome is so inclusive and diverse. It was all about diversity. It was, yeah. You know what the Romans did to entire village? We have accounts of mass mutilation. Oh, you took arms against us? We'll cut every single right hand from every single able-bodied male of your entire village. That's what the inclusive Romans did. They were brutal. That's the reality. Inclusivity in Rome was economic, because it was profitable. And in fact, they debated it in the Senate. There were senators that were like, those foreigners, we don't want to deal with them. And there were senators who were like, no, let them in. They're rich. I'm paraphrasing, but it's in Latin in the sources. Emperor Claudius, this is because people don't study the history. Emperor Claudius, that's how he was very pro, let's give citizenship to the Celts, let's give citizenship to the Gauls, let's give citizenship, let's go. But he always justified it with money. Always justified it with money. Let me finish this and then we're done. Calls into questions, done with this topic, I've got a lot more. Calls into question whether group members qualify as human beings. Yeah, it's awful to do, still shouldn't be legal. Refers to them as, man, this is specific, horrible creatures who ought not to be allowed to live. Who the heck speaks like this? Incognizant prime, oh my God. Genetically inferior, okay, fine. Now, do they know that every time I've clashed with the Afrocentrists on matters of history, not once in all the videos I made have I ever said anything racist. But you know what my comment sections look like every time that a Afrocentrist creator made a response video to me? They called me genetically inferior to them. The Afrocentrists think that I'm a Neanderthal hybrid who is genetically inferior to them. So, here's the thing, though. I actually like that they call me hybrid because I do have the hair of the Neanderthal. I do. So they have a point, and I take pride in it. So yeah, I'm a based Neanderthal. I'll take it. That's fine. I'm sure I have some Neanderthal DNA in there somehow, and who cares? But I ask the C9 bill. Do I get some form of reparations because I have proof? I've got all the comments. So do I get something from Canada? Do they send me a check? If they sent me $20 for every time I've been called this and this and this from the Afrocentric community, man, they pay my freaking mortgage. All right, guys, I think I've read enough. about this. They are going to keep it as vague as possible so that they're going to make it literally impossible for you to quote the Bible. That's what they're going to do. I know that there are some very tough to read passages in the Bible, but guess what? They are in the Old Testament, and we are not Bronze Age Jews. So whatever it said in the Old Testament time, it doesn't matter, because as a Christian, I live under the new law and the new covenant. So there is that. But this is bullshit, and that's the reality. If you appreciate my content so far and wish to help ensure my ability to continue to tell it how it is, regardless of any possible backlash, please support this channel on Patreon. Any support helps me and my team of academics keep the channel strong and gives us the means to fight back against the political rewriting of history. Stand with us, form the wall, defend the truth.